So today we will see what is multiprocessor system. There are two types of architectures available for multiprocessing systems: shared memory multiprocessing system and distributed memory multiprocessing system. So shared memory multiprocessing system is also known as tightly coupled, and distributed memory is also known as loosely coupled. Now we'll see what is shared memory multiprocessing. This can be viewed as an extension of our conventional model. So here in this figure I have shown a conventional model which we use generally. So in that there is one processor, one memory which is connected through a interconnection network. So what is interconnection network here? It's a bus. Okay. When instructions or data from memory are required by the CPU, the bus is taken over by the CPU. The easiest way to extend this model to multiprocessing would be replicating CPU. So what we can do is we can add number of processors. So this is what is shown in this particular figure. You can see that there are multiple CPUs here. The memory and the interconnection mechanism are common. Okay. There may be one or more memory blocks here, but all are connected to a common bus. Therefore, we can view them as a single memory chunk. The address space of the process is identical in all the CPUs since they are on the same common network. Actually, the memory will not even know which CPU is asking for data. Each CPU will execute independently as if the other units do not exist. When it wants to access memory, it will try to take over the bus and proceed as before. However, the bus may not be available when one wants it because someone else is already using it. Bus arbitration hardware ensures use by only one CPU at a time. So there is one strategy or technique which can help allotting a particular CPU to a bus at a particular given time. So, but what is the problem here? The bus may become a bottleneck since the only available memory is common. Okay, so access overhead due to waiting for the bus may become high. However, note that in this model, the time to access any given memory cell by the processor is uniform. Means the time required to access the memory by CPU1 by CPU2 is same, is uniform. That's why this system is called as uniform memory access, that is UMA. Okay. A solution to this memory access problem, okay, the solution to this memory access problem is we can split the memory. Okay, we can split the memory and associate the different parts with different processors. So you can see in this figure what we have done. We have splitted the memory and we have assigned it to particular processor. The processor to which a block of memory is attached, like for example here memory 1 is attached to CPU 1, memory 2 to CPU 2 and memory n to CPU n. Okay. The processor to which a block of memory is attached gets a direct access path to that block. So CPU1 can directly access memory 1. Okay. So why this is happening? Because it does not have to go through the common bus. Okay. So whenever CPU1 wants to access memory 1, CPU can directly access memory 1. CPU doesn't have to go through the bus. Okay. So for example here, accessing memory block M1, that is memory 1 from CPU 1 will be much faster than accessing block memory 2 from C1, CPU 1, right? So this has a significant implication. So the time required to access memory is not uniform. That's why it is called as non-uniform memory access, or also known as NUMA. Okay, so this is about shared memory multiprocessing system. Now we'll see what is distributed memory. In shared memory model, we replicated the CPUs only, leaving the bus and memory more or less intact. An alternative model for parallel computing is to replicate the whole computing unit. We have multiple computers in the system, not just multiple CPUs. Thus, there is nothing shared in this model. We then provide an interconnection network which links all the processors directly. This will be used to pass on information to other processors as required. So here you can see in this figure, we have one system here, CPU with memory. This is second system, CPU 2, memory 2, and this is the third system. So these are independent systems which we have connected through the interconnection network. So this is the distributed memory model, also known as multi-computer models. The memory is strictly local to each processor. So this CPU 1 has its own local memory 1. CPU 2 will have memory 2 as a local memory, and CPU N has memory N as a local memory. This appears similar to the non-uniform memory configuration just now which we have seen. The significant difference is that there is no way for a CPU 1 to access memory 2 or memory N without going through their corresponding CPUs. Okay, so in NUMA we have seen, though the path uh, could be longer, okay, the interconnection network provides access to the whole memory available. So if you remember in the previous slide, we have seen NUMA in that if CPU 1 wants to access memory 2, there was a path directly shown in that figure. Okay, but here that path is missing. So whenever CPU 1 wants to access memory 2, CPU 1 has to send a message to CPU 2 to access memory 2. Okay, so why is distributed memory model is interesting? We have mentioned earlier that shared memory models do not scale well. Means what? You cannot add uh, many processors. Okay, so in the previous slide I have shown that there are three processors, CPU1, CPU2, CPU3. Okay, so but if you add more number of processors, the performance of the system will go down. Okay, uh, distributed machines do not have this problem. Okay, they use the interconnection only for sending messages. So shared memory systems require special purpose hardware. Okay, we cannot think of buying 4 CPUs independently and then wiring them up to get a shared memory system. So in general, shared memory models are not flexible to add more CPUs arbitrarily. So that is the disadvantage of shared memory. Now what is the advantage of shared memory? Since there is a common memory, the communication overheads are less, the time required to communicate is less. That's why it is known as tightly coupled. In distributed memory, since the memory is not common, the time required to communicate is more, so it is called as loosely coupled. There are mainly two types of multiprocessors, that is symmetric and asymmetric multiprocessors. In symmetric multiprocessors, each processor contains a similar copy of the operating system and they all communicate with each other. All the processors are in a peer-to-peer relationship, that is, there is no master-slave relationship exists between them. In asymmetric multiprocessors, each processor is given a predefined task. So there is a master processor that gives instruction to all other processors. Asymmetric multiprocessor system contains a master-slave relationship. So there are three approaches applicable to multi-core systems as well as systems with discrete CPU. We will see the first one. Each CPU has its own operating system. So here you can see there are four CPUs I have shown, and each CPU has its own private operating system. And the memory is divided into four partitions. Why four partitions here? Because there are four CPUs. So each CPU has a one partition here in the memory. Okay, so it divides the memory into as many partitions as there are CPUs. Each CPU has its own private memory and its own private copy of the operating system. It shares a set of disk and other I/O devices and memory. So what is the disk here? It's a secondary device. Okay. So there are disadvantages of this system. When process makes a system call, it is handled on its own CPU. Okay. If a user logs into CPU1, all of his processes run on CPU1. Hence, it can happen that CPU2 is idle while CPU1 is loaded with work. So no proper utilization of the resources. Then next is no sharing of pages. What is the meaning of this? CPU1 may have pages, but CPU2 cannot borrow it from CPU1 since memory allocation is fixed. And it will be worst if the operating system maintains a buffer cache, then cache coherence may occur, and because of that the inconsistency will occur. So due to all these problems, this model is rarely used. Next is master-slave multiprocessor system. It is a asymmetric type. Um, in this, the operating system is present only in one CPU. Okay, here I have shown it. Only CPU1 has operating system. So it is called a master. So CPU1 is a master, and other CPUs are slaves. Okay, so that's why it is called as master and slave model. CPU1 may run user processes if there is a time left with CPU. Okay, so it can never happen that one CPU is idle and other is overloaded. So resource allocation is better in this system. Similarly, pages can be allocated among all the processes dynamically, and there is only one buffer cache, so inconsistency never occurs. Now, disadvantage of this system is with many CPUs or many slaves, the master will become bottleneck here. Okay, because it has to handle all system calls from all CPUs. Thus, this model is simple and workable for small multiprocessors, but large ones it fails. The third approach is symmetric multiprocessors. Most modern multiprocessors use this arrangement. In this, there is one copy of OS in memory. See here, you can see there is one copy of operating system in memory, but any CPU can access this OS. But CPU1 wants to access, so it can run it. Okay, if CPU2 want to run, that is possible. So when a system call is made, the CPU on which the system call was made traps the kernel and processes the system call. This model balances processes and memory dynamically since there is only one set of OS. It also eliminates the master CPU bottleneck since there is no master. Disadvantage of this is if two or more CPUs are running operating system code at the same time, okay, disaster may occur. There will be a problem if two CPUs simultaneously picking the same process to run or claiming the same free memory page. So what is the solution for this? We can apply mutex, that is called as lock, with the operating system making the whole system one big critical region. So when CPU wants to run the operating system, like CPU1 wants to run the OS code, it must first acquire the mutex. Mutex means locks. Okay. If the mutex is locked, it just waits. In this way, CPU can run the OS, but only one at a time. This approach is known as big kernel lock. So what I am trying to tell you is CPU1 takes the access of OS here. It will lock, CPU1 will lock this OS code for other CPUs. So at a particular time, only one CPU can get access of OS. Okay. So disadvantage is what? If lock is for more time, Okay, CPU 1 has locked this for longer time, then other CPUs they have to wait. Okay, so they are going to waste their time. So what is the solution for this? Splitting the operating system into multiple independent critical regions that do not interact with each other. That is a solution. So what if CPU 1 is doing something independent, okay, CPU 2, CPU 3, CPU 1 and they are doing the tasks which are independent. Okay, for example, there won't be any problem if CPU 1 is running the scheduler, CPU 2 is handling the file system call and CPU 3 is processing page fault. Okay, so in that case there won't be any problem. Now we'll see what is multiprogramming operating system. To overcome the problem of underutilization of CPU and main memory, this operating system was introduced. The multiprogramming is interleaved execution of multiple jobs by the same computer. Now what is interleaved execution? The meaning of it is second execution started before the first is over. In this system, when one program is waiting for I/O transfer, that is input-output transfer, there is another program ready to utilize the CPU. Hence, several jobs can share the time of the CPU. The multiprogramming doesn't mean simultaneous execution of different jobs. It means that there are a number of jobs available to the CPU which are placed in main memory, and a portion of one is executed, then a segment of another, and so on. The process is shown in the figure here. Okay, so here you can see job A, job B, and job C. Okay, so job A is not utilizing CPU. Okay, CPU time, because it is busy in IO operation. Now what is IO operation? Maybe writing or reading from a secondary storage device. Hence the CPU becomes busy to execute job B. Okay, since job A is not required CPU's time, okay, CPU is busy doing job B. Another job C here is waiting for the CPU time. It is waiting for the CPU for getting its execution time. In this case, CPU will never be idle, okay, and utilization is maximum. So this is called as multiprogramming operating system. Now let's see what is time sharing system. It allows many users to share the computer resources simultaneously. So in this figure I have shown there is one CPU, okay, giving service to multiple users. So there are multiple users, user 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. In other words, the time sharing refers to the allocation of computer resources in the time slots to several programs simultaneously. So CPU is allotted to each and every user, but for a particular time slot. Okay, so the example for this is in mainframe computers, multiple users are logged in. Generally, multiple users are accessing it, and each user uses the resources like memory, CPU, etc. So a timeshare system uses CPU scheduling and multiprogramming to provide each user with a small portion of a time's shared computer. It allows many users to share the computer resources simultaneously. As the system switches rapidly from one user to other, okay, a short time slot is given to each user for their execution. So the operating system allocates a set of time to each user. When this time is expired, it passes control to the next user on the system. So for example, okay, some microseconds are given to user 1. As soon as the time is over, the control will go to user 2. Similarly, after that, it will go to user 3 and so on. The time allowed is uh, extremely small here, and the users are given the impression that they each have their own CPU and they are the sole owner of the CPU. This short period of time during which a user gets the attention of the CPU is known as time slice or a quantum. So just now I said that microseconds are given to user 1. Okay, not microseconds, less than that is given to user 1. So that particular time slot is called as time slice or a quantum. So here in this figure you can see, as soon as the time slot of user 5 is completed, the control will go to user 6. Okay, so this is how the time sharing system works.